Why'd you do it?
Sitting.
The man you see here, eyes wide with madness, struggling against the grip of the police, is 24-year-old Derica Moore. But what you don't know is that this is no ordinary arrest. Just hours earlier, he had unleashed a nightmare, a spree of violence that left 6 people dead in less than 24 hours. On January 10, 2026, a small, quiet, rural community, known for its peaceful nature, was torn apart in a single blood-soaked day. What began as an uneventful morning quickly spiraled into an unspeakable tragedy as a massacre unfolded across multiple crime scenes. At the heart of it all stood Derica Moore, a young man who, until that day, was nothing more than a familiar face to his neighbors. Now he was a killer, a cold-blooded murderer who had wiped out his own father, brother, uncle, cousin, and 2 others in one explosive day. The question everyone is asking, what could drive a man to unleash such a horrifying act on his own family and neighbors with such ruthless abandon? Was it rage, drugs, a past betrayal, or something far darker brewing beneath the surface? Before we get to that tragic event, let's rewind and take a look at who Derica Moore was before all of this and what led to that tragic night. On January 10, 2026, the world tragically lost 6 people, 3 of whom were family members of 24-year-old Derica M. Moore. The victims were Glenn Moore, his father, Willie Jean, his uncle, and Quentin Moore, his brother. These individuals, who had once been pillars of support and love in their family, were ruthlessly murdered within a span of just a few hours. Their deaths left a void that could never be filled. The pain and grief of their loss would forever alter the lives of those who knew them, not just because of the love they gave, but because of the horrific way in which their lives were so violently and unjustly taken. But what was more chilling was who was behind the murders. It was 24-year-old Derica M. Moore, their own family member. Derica was born and raised in Cedar Bluff, a small rural community in Clay County, Mississippi. Growing up in this close-knit town, he lived among extended relatives, surrounded by family ties that were deeply rooted in the area. Cedar Bluff was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, and while Derica was familiar to those in his hometown, he was not widely known outside of it. As he entered adulthood, Derica remained in Cedar Bluff, continuing to live near his relatives. Several of the people closest to him, his father, brother, uncle, and young cousin, were part of the same family fabric. His life was largely intertwined with family, reflecting the strong bonds typical of small rural towns. By the age of 24, Derica had become a recognizable figure locally, though his presence did not extend beyond the boundaries of Cedar Bluff. His reputation and identity were shaped by the environment he grew up in, a rural Mississippi town where family connections defined much of daily life, which was surprising why he would commit such a terrible crime. Glenn Moore, aged 67, was a man who had lived a long and meaningful life. As a father and a figure of wisdom, he had seen much and had always provided guidance to his family. Yet in the blink of an eye, his life was stolen from him. 55-year-old Willie Jean was not just an uncle to Derica, but a trusted family member who had always been there, offering support and affection. 33-year-old Quentin Moore was the youngest of the 3 victims, a man who was full of potential and energy. Together, they were a family that had been a source of strength and love for each other, and now they would only be remembered for the tragedy that befell them. Their deaths were just the beginning of the violence that would soon spiral out of control. The ripple effect of Rico Moore's actions stretched far beyond his immediate family, touching the innocent life of a 7-year-old cousin, Michaelia Gweens, who was also brutally murdered. Her life, full of promise, was cut short in a brutal act of violence. What made the loss even more devastating was the fact that it occurred in front of her mother and siblings. These victims, Glenn, Willie Jean, Quentin, and the 7-year-old Michaelia Gweens, were not just names on a list. They were beloved members of their family and community. Their lives were full of love, warmth, and memories, and they had so much more to give. Their families were left in shock, struggling to understand the senseless violence that had taken them. How could someone who had been so close to them, someone they had loved and trusted, be capable of such monstrous acts? The horrifying crime spree began on January 10, 2026, when Rico, in an act of unthinkable violence, allegedly murdered Glenn Moore, Willie Jean, and Quinton Moore at a residence on David Hill Road in Cedar Bluff, Mississippi. Authorities report that Derica fatally shot each of his family members, leaving their bodies behind in a pool of blood. After committing these murders, he stole his brother's F-150 pickup truck and drove off, seemingly with no remorse for what he had just done. At the second crime scene, located on Blake Road, Derica allegedly forced his way into a home where he attempted to take advantage of the 7-year-old Michaelia Gweens. The child, who had been nothing but innocent and full of life, was shot in the head. The act was described by authorities as not just a senseless murder, but a deeply shocking betrayal. The relationship between the perpetrator and the victim made the violence all the more incomprehensible. To witness such a brutal act in front of the child's family, her mother and siblings, was an experience that would haunt them forever. After the senseless murder of his cousin, Derica did not stop. His rampage continued as he fled to Griffin Road, where authorities later discovered the bodies of Barry Bradley and Samuel Bradley. Barry was a pastor, a man of faith, and Samuel was a beloved figure in the community. The two were found shot in the head, their lives taken without warning. Barry's death, in particular, was seen as a terrible irony. As a man of the cloth, he had dedicated his life to helping others, only to be struck down by the very person he would have tried to guide. These 6 victims, Glenn, Willie Jean, Quinton, Michaelia Gweens, Barry, and Samuel, were all taken within the matter of hours, their lives violently stolen in an unimaginable spree of terror.
Heartbreak in Clay County tonight. 6 people, 3 different crime scenes, a family executed in cold blood by one of their own. This is the 3rd mass shooting in Clay County since 2023, and one of Mississippi's deadliest mass in recent history. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Emily Leonard. We have a lot of new information to share with you tonight. Some of it is disturbing. All of it is just heartbreaking. Let's get to the very latest information. This is the man investigators say is responsible for the violence and the bloodshed. 24-year-old Derica Moore. He's behind bars tonight, accused of 6 people. 4 of Moore's victims were his own family. One of the victims was a 7-year-old girl. Moore will go before a judge in Clay County Monday. He is charged with first-degree murder, but we expect that charge to be upgraded to capital murder within the next 48 hours. We have team coverage tonight on the Rampage and a special edition of WTVA 9 News. Our Michelle Martin interviewed Clay County Sheriff Eddie Scott earlier today. Tanaya McQueen has an exclusive interview with the mother of one of the victims, and Wayne Herford is also in Clay County. He spoke with the members of the community about this tragedy. Let's first go to Michelle, who has all of the details on what happened Friday night.
Yeah, Emily, Sheriff Eddie Scott and his team of investigators have investigated a lot of horrible crimes over these years, but this one has to be the most disturbing case that has ever happened in this community. This is just something that investigators in the community say that they're just struggling to grasp and understand how this level of violence can happen in their own backyard. This violent rampage happened on Friday night. This all happened in several locations near West Point. The area is in the Griffith and Cedar Bluff communities. 24-year-old Derica Moore is first accused of 3 relatives inside of a home on David Hill Road. The victims were essentially executed, all of them, in the head. The sheriff says Moore, his father, Glenn Moore, his brother, Quinton Moore, and then his uncle, Willie Gewins. Moore then stole a truck and drove to another home on Blake Road. It was there, deputies say, Moore forced his way inside. The sheriff says Moore tried to assault someone in that home, and then he allegedly a 7-year-old girl. That girl was Moore's cousin. Moore took off traveling to a third location on Siloam Griffith Griffith Road. When investigators arrived there, they found the stolen truck hidden behind the house, signs of forced entry, and then 2 more victims inside, 2 men in the head. The victims were identified as Barry Bradley and Samuel Bradley. One of them was a well-known pastor. Moore was caught and taken into custody at a roadblock. He is charged with first-degree. What investigators still don't know, and what continues to just trouble this community, is why.
This guy has not been on our radar. We have not had any reports, anything prior leading up to this. So what his state of mind was, what was going on with him, that's part of the investigation right now.
You know, this is the type of case where the penalty is going to have to be really looked at. If he's eligible for the penalty, the district attorney's office is going to go for the penalty. There's some cases just that they've got to get the worst punishment. They've got to get the worst punishment. 6 people, one night, several different scenes. You've heard the allegations. They're about as bad as it gets.
Derek Moore will have a preliminary hearing on Monday in West Point. Sheriff Eddie Scott says those charges will be upgraded to capital. Coming up here shortly, I will be talking to Sheriff Eddie Scott live to talk about what's moving forward with this case and what is planning to get justice for the families that are involved. Live in Clay County, Michelle Martin, WTVA 9 News.
Derica's actions left a profound and lasting impact on his family, friends, and community. The people who had once known and loved him were left to try to understand how someone who had once been a part of their lives could commit such unspeakable acts. As the sun set on January 10, 2026, the small community of Cedar Bluff, Mississippi was thrust into a nightmare. Police had already been alerted about gunshots at David Hill Road, and the realization that something was terribly wrong began to sink in. When authorities arrived at the home where the first murders occurred, they discovered the bodies of Glenn Moore, Willie Jean, and Quinton Moore, each with fatal gunshot wounds to the head. It was clear that the violence wasn't random. The victims weren't strangers. This was personal. Law enforcement quickly set up a perimeter around the area, but the sheer scale of the crime, a family massacre, was unsettling. Sheriff Eddie Scott of Clay County, Mississippi, and his department were immediately involved, and it wasn't long before they realized that they were facing a larger, more complex case than they had anticipated. Within hours, Derica Moore had not only killed 3 of his family members, but he had also escalated his rampage to another crime scene on Blake Road. It was there that he murdered his 7-year-old cousin and attempted to take advantage of her. The brutality and coldness of his actions left the officers with a gut-wrenching feeling. This wasn't just a family dispute or a domestic argument gone wrong. This was something much darker. In response, a multi-agency task force was formed. Local officers were quickly joined by the Mississippi Highway Patrol, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, and the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics. Together, they worked tirelessly, knowing the seriousness of the situation. Even with the relatively quiet nature of the region, this was a crime that would not go unnoticed. It would leave scars on the community forever. The challenge was to bring the perpetrator to justice, and fast. Investigators had to move quickly, piecing together the timeline of events. They learned that after the murder of his father, brother, and uncle, Derica stole his brother's F-150 pickup truck and drove to Blake Road, where he committed more unspeakable crimes. This was an indication that Derica was not just seeking revenge on his family, but that something deeper, more complex was happening. The pivotal moment in the case came when law enforcement set up a safety checkpoint, a routine operation to catch traffic violators and ensure the safety of the community. What was not expected, however, was that Derica Moore, the man wanted for 6 murders, would drive right into the checkpoint. Officers from various agencies, Mississippi Highway Patrol, MBI, and the U.S. Marshal Service, had been tirelessly working to locate Derica, and now he had walked right into their hands. Derica was arrested without incident at the checkpoint half a mile from the Blake Road crime scene. The officer's swift response meant that Derica could be taken into custody before he could escape or do further harm. As he was arrested, investigators found that the stolen truck Derica was driving contained more evidence, leading them to believe that Derica had also stolen additional items from the crime scenes.
An investigation continues into a man accused of shooting 6 people, including a 7-year-old child in Mississippi. Family members are now speaking out after the incident. Kamari Hamer has more.
When they first told me, I just couldn't believe it. When they said it was my brother, I was really shocked about it. Didn't want to believe that he had got.
Kimberly Moore and Versie Jennings are still in shock after hearing the news about the death of their family members and the identity of the suspect. Clay County Sheriff Eddie Scott tells WCBI 24-year-old Derica Moore and 67-year-old Glenn Moore, 55-year-old Willie Gins, 33-year-old Quentin Moore, at this home on David Hill Road. All three victims were related to the Moore then allegedly stole a Ford F-150 that belonged to Quentin Moore. It is believed that the then traveled to Blake Road and forced his way into this home and attempted to assault someone. While he was there, Moore reportedly encountered a 7-year-old girl who was also his second cousin.
It really is a sad situation. I really don't know what the causing of this. We all just need prayer at this time.
The continued. Clay County investigators say Moore left in the stolen truck and drove to this home on Salome Griffith Road. Deputies found the stolen truck behind the home, signs of forced entry, and the bodies of Barry and Samuel Bradley.
We all lift our hearts in prayer for the victims and families. Again, this is really, really shaking our community. And for me, almost 30 years in this is one of the toughest ones we had to work.
The suspect had no prior history with law enforcement, and at this time, there's no clear motive behind the crime spree.
Mental illness, that's something serious that we as a family should take, try to check on our people because, like I said, we really don't know what happened and what the situation is, but it was just a family dispute, and we asking for prayer.
Moore is being charged with first-degree murder. That charge is expected to be upgraded to capital. More charges are also expected to come.
Once arrested, Derica was transported to Clay County Jail and placed under heavy guard. His capture ended a terrifying chapter for the community, but it marked the beginning of a long process for the families and authorities to cope with the aftermath. On January 11, prosecutors filed a sweeping set of charges against Derica, including 3 counts of capital murder, 3 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder of a child, attempted SA battery, burglary of a dwelling, 2 counts of felony motor vehicle theft. These charges reflect both the scale of the violence and the range of alleged criminal acts committed during the spree. Derica Moore appeared before Circuit Court Judge James T. Kitchens on January 12, 2026. During the hearing, he entered not guilty pleas to all charges. The judge denied bond, citing the severity of the allegations and the capital murder counts, which under Mississippi law make him ineligible for release.
New developments in the deadly mass shooting in Clay County. Derica Moore faces new and upgraded charges. A judge lays down the hammer, and the families of the victims had to really live this nightmare all over again this afternoon.
Why'd you do it?
The 7th of my
That was Derica Moore, handcuffed and shackled. As he was led into the courtroom, Moore would not answer our questions and, as you heard, cursed out our team of reporters covering that court hearing. Moore's charged with 11 felonies, 3 counts of capital murder, 3 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder of a child, attempted battery, burglary, and 2 counts of felony car theft. Moore pleaded not guilty to all 11 charges. WTVA's Michelle Martin and Wayne Herford have been following this heartbreaking story since Saturday. Michelle kicks off our team coverage tonight from West Point.
Emily, Friday night was nothing short of a nightmare for this family. 6 lives lost, 3 different locations, and the community, they're still searching for answers. Derica Moore is accused of carrying out a rampage Friday night, and it left 6 people. He is also connected to 4 of the victims. Moore's family members that was his own father, uncle, brother, and 7-year-old cousin. Moore pleaded not guilty to all 11 felony charges. His bond has been denied. I talked to the cousin to both the suspect and 4 of the victims. Reen McMillan says her family is still struggling to process what happened Friday night. She spoke openly about why she believes this tragedy was it was not about Derica himself.
It has been tough on my family, but God. We understand that this was not Derica. We are a close-knit family. This was not him. This was an attack on our family, but it was not Derica, and we understand that. Mental health is real.
A judge ordered Moore to have a mental evaluation. Reen McMillan says her family is clinging to their faith and they are supporting each other. The community is also supporting them. They have created a GoFundMe for the victims' families. You can go to WTVA.com to find a link for those GoFundMes. Live in West Point, Michelle Martin, WTVA 9 News.
The court ordered Derica to undergo a comprehensive mental health evaluation to determine his competency to stand trial. This step is critical in capital cases, where the defendant's psychological state can influence both trial proceedings and sentencing. As of the upload of this case, Derica Moore remains in custody at the Clay County Jail. The trial date has not yet been set, pending the outcome of the mental health evaluation. Prosecutors have indicated they will pursue the case aggressively, while defense attorneys are expected to challenge both the charges and Rico's mental fitness. The case is still in its early stages, but it has already shaken the Cedar Bluff community. With 6 lives lost and a young man facing the possibility of life imprisonment or even the death penalty if convicted, the proceedings are expected to draw significant public attention in the months ahead. The arrest of Derica Moore brought some relief, but the weight of the tragedy hung over Cedar Bluff. The news of the deaths spread quickly, and neighbors, friends, and family members of the victims were left in utter shock. For a community where everyone knew each other, the reality of having a member commit such horrific acts was unfathomable. No one could have predicted that someone like Derica, who had seemingly led a normal life, would turn into a cold-blooded killer. Glenn Moore, his father, was remembered by those who knew him as a kind, hard-working man. His death left an irreplaceable void in the lives of his loved ones. Similarly, Willie Jean and Quentin Moore, who had their lives ahead of them, were mourned by family members who had hoped for a future filled with laughter and memories. As for the 7-year-old Mikilia Guinez, her death was especially hard for the community to accept. How could anyone harm a child, let alone their own family? The brutality of the act, the fact that her life was taken in front of her mother and siblings, left everyone grappling with the horror of what had transpired. A family had been torn apart. A small, tight-knit community had been shattered. The question on everyone's mind was what had driven Derica to commit such violent acts. What could cause a man, especially one who had no prior criminal record, to take the lives of so many people? In the aftermath, Mikilia Guinez's mother spoke up, her grief evident as she addressed the loss of her 7-year-old daughter.
But I tried to do all I, can to help her, to save her. But I couldn't. And that's weighing heavy on my heart.
As we mentioned, one of the 6 victims was a child. 7-year-old Mikilia Guin was shot in the head at that second location. The little girl's family, as you would imagine, just heartbroken. WTVA's Tanaya McQueen talked to Mikilia's mother, who says part of her when she lost her child that night. Tanaya is live in West Point with her emotional interview.
There's just not enough words to describe the pain that LaShonda Gewins must be dealing with. Little Mikilia was so happy, so bright, and full of so much joy, and she brought so much life into their home. And now this family is left to deal with a loss that no one can understand. Now, LaShonda Gewins was actually at that home when everything happened. They live on Blake Road. It was a place the family felt safe. It was their sanctuary. But that peace was shattered just last night. Now, LaShonda's cousin, Derica Moore, is accused of murdering her daughter. LaShonda says she actually saw her child right in front of her other 2 children. A heartbreak no mother should ever have to experience.
I can't help but to feel like, I could have did more. But I tried to do all I, can to help her, to save her. But I couldn't. And that's weighing heavy on my heart because it might have been more. What if I did this and what if I did that? It would have been, a better outcome. But I just don't know. I tried.
The family is now focused on remembering and honoring little Michaela's life. They're asking for prayers tonight as they deal with this unimaginable heartbreak. Tonight at 10, I'll share more of this emotional interview, and I'll talk to the little girl's grandfather, and I'll have how he now has to hold this family all together after this unimaginable loss. Live in Clay County, Tanaya McQueen, WTVA 9 News.
The outpouring of love and support for the family, especially for the mother, was immense as the community rallied behind them in their time of need. A prayer service for the victims and community was held. It was a moment of collective mourning for the community. The loss of 6 people in one night left families, friends, and loved ones grappling with a level of grief that words could hardly capture.
Power of prayer. That is what the Clay County community turned to following a tragic mass that claimed 6 lives over the weekend. Tonight, though, family members, neighbors, leaders, friends all gathered, and they unified in grief, remembrance, and hope. WTVA's Tanaya McQueen was there for the emotional gathering.
Very emotional, tears, sobs, but above all, prayer.
And he answered, that's why
Neighbors and family members filled the Clay County Justice Center, a room heavy with grief, but also with faith. The prayer service was organized by Pastor Eddie Longstreet of St. Paul Mount Baptist Church. First responders stood alongside community members, joined by pastors from across Mississippi, all there for one reason: to pray for families and the 6 lives lost. This is the first time the community gathered together since that deadly. The emotional weight in the room was undeniable and the purpose clear.
And Lord, one of the good I see now is we're all here together in one room for one purpose. That is to bring support and comfort to broken hearts.
Tears filled the room. Many people I spoke with were still too shaken up to speak on camera, but for those who attended, this service meant everything.
It might be your family or my family tomorrow. So together we stand, and divided we fall. And so we just got to keep praying for one another. We got to keep loving one another, and we got to keep this community lifted up in prayer.
Prayers extended beyond this moment. Community members say they plan to continue lifting up the Ewens and Bradley families, not just today, but in the days and weeks ahead. Mental health was a common topic throughout the service. City leaders emphasized its importance.
Mental health is really important because I work in the healthcare field myself, and it's just vital because in times like these, ain't nothing new under the sun. So we just have to support one another, and we just have to be our brother and sister keepers. We got to look out for one another.
This is one of the darkest moments Clay County has faced, but in the midst of that darkness, the community is choosing to stand together. Prayer and support will continue long after tonight, and funeral arrangements will be made soon, according to Bell Memorial Funeral Home. Live in West Point, Tanaya McQueen, WTVA 9 News.
The service was filled with sorrow, but it was also a time for remembrance. Pastor Barry Bradley, who had been one of the victims, was a beloved figure in the community. His death hit the local congregation especially hard, and tributes poured in from the church and from people whose lives had been touched by his teachings and kindness. For the families, the service was just the beginning of the long road ahead. They would have to navigate life without their loved ones, facing birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays with an empty chair at the table. The emotional scars would take much longer to heal. The emotional toll on the victims' families was immense. The pain of losing loved ones so suddenly and violently was something they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. As they gathered to mourn, the weight of their loss was felt in every corner of their lives. They would never be the same again, as the violent actions of one person had irrevocably changed the fabric of their families. No amount of time could heal the wounds left by such a traumatic event. Derica Moore's actions left a permanent scar on his family and community, altering how they viewed him and how they would remember those who were taken. The person they had once trusted and loved was now a symbol of horror, and the pain of the victims' families would continue to resonate in the years to come. They would forever remember Glenn, Willie, Quentin, Michael, Barry, and Samuel, not just as family members, but as individuals who were tragically taken from them far too soon. Their memories, their love, and their lives would never be forgotten, even as the community struggled to make sense of the unfathomable loss. This tragedy raises many questions. What could have prevented this? Why did Derica Moore do this? The answers remain elusive, but the impact on the community is undeniable. Violence like this doesn't just break families, it breaks entire communities. As you read this, think about the people in your life. Are there signs of distress or warning signs that something is wrong? Could someone you know be suffering silently, harboring feelings of anger or resentment? This case serves as a reminder that mental health, drugs, and unresolved emotional pain can have devastating consequences. It's a stark reminder to keep an eye out for those around you and to offer support where it's needed. For anyone struggling with their emotions, mental health, or feeling overwhelmed, it's vital to seek help. If you or someone you know is facing similar issues, there are resources available. Mental health support is crucial, and substance abuse issues should not be ignored. Support systems can save lives. Sometimes it's the little gestures, a kind word, a supportive conversation that can make a huge difference. In the case of Derica Moore, it's impossible to say what could have prevented this tragedy, but the importance of early intervention and support cannot be overstated. If you are dealing with unresolved emotional struggles, please reach out. Talk to a loved one or call a local helpline for support. Seek professional help before it becomes too late. Be proactive in keeping your community safe and strong, both mentally and emotionally. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.